Welcome to another episode of the King and Branch Show. Uh, don't have the thumbnail ready yet. That's why we didn't have one in over this opening. But by the time this goes out, I'll come up with one to put. Probably one with Elon and a chainsaw and something with a teenager or something like that. But yeah, welcome back to episode 2 of the King of Branch Show. We're doing political news and film cultural review stuff. The branch will be talking about what's going on with Dark MAGA. We have a little bit of a Dark MAGA update here, and I'll be doing a little review of the documentary film Teenage. Uh, and so there's gonna be exciting. Got some exciting stuff. Uh, going to my segment. I'm going to be proving how teenagers don't exist, and we're going to have some getting ready for the end of the times on the branches end. So here we go. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Hey man, it's good to be here. Hey, you got a picture? Um, you had that picture of the JFK desk. Can you
Oh
bring that
yeah,
up?
you want that one? We got this one here to start us off on politically.
Yeah, man. I just thought that would be a nice way to start. You were talking about the thumbnail and stuff, so you got me thinking about that.
Yeah. We have here to describe it. We have on one end we have the iconic photo of JFK and JFK Jr. Underneath the desk, and then on the right we have Elon and Elon Musk and Donald Trump with Elon's son's X hiding with his face partially covered by the desk in the Oval Office.
That's you abbreviated his name, Chris. How dare you?
Well, Elon likes the word X. He wanted to rename PayPal X, I believe, and they wouldn't let him. And then he, names his kid X or
Oh
X
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. I forgot about
whatever.
all those
And
details.
yeah, so he's obsessed with the letter
Obsession.
X. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, I just know there's a lot more to it, though. Like
Well,
they also like the what is it, the reconnaissance jet, A-12 or something. I think
yeah,
there's some other things peppered in there.
yeah.
One of
But
the letters, the A stands for archangel, I think, as well. By the way, right?
yeah, I think it's like Ash, like Asher or Asia, or I think is how he pronounces it. Once I heard him say in the video something like that.
Oh, it's the A. It's that letter that's the A and the E combined. It's like the
Y-
alphabet or something.
Yeah,
It's like a Gaelic letter, maybe.
yeah. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm a modern day American. I only half know English. I guess you can say.
Well, did you want to talk about that desk a little bit? Because it's kind of interesting, huh?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
So you can even have an image of it up while I'm reading about it. That might be a little more, yeah, that's a little more
Yeah,
aesthetic.
that's like
So
aesthetic.
I'll read it about it here a little bit. So this is known as the Resolute desk, and it's also known as the Hayes desk. It's a 19th century partner's desk used by several presidents of the United States in the White House as the Oval Office desk, including the 5 most recent presidents. The desk was a gift from Queen Victoria to President Rutherford B. Hayes. That's where it gets the name the Hayes desk. This was in 1880, and it was built from the oak timbers of the British Arctic exploration ship HMS Resolute. Ha! Man, I did not know any of this. Did you? So
No.
this sucker is 1,300 pounds.
Oh, I mean, it looks like a nice desk. I mean, I've always wanted a nice study with a giant desk like that.
Yeah, it's a fine desk. I agree,
It's a
Chris.
fine
Looks
desk.
solid. Yeah, it's an absolute unit. Well,
It's not.
actually,
It's
it's
not an IKEA
Resolute.
desk.
Oh yeah, yeah. Take more than yeah. There's no way. Um, let's see here. It was created by William Everton, a skilled joiner at the Chatham Dockyard in Kent. So he was a shipbuilder. Hence, it came from the ship, of course. Probably from a design, blah, blah, blah. The desk had been modified twice with a knee hole panel added in 1945 and a 2-inch tall plinth added to the desk in 1961. I'm not sure what a plinth is. Support at the bottom must be like for your feet. And I guess this other thing it's talking about, this knee hole, is that what the little kid's looking through in that picture?
I'm assuming so.
That's got to be it.
Yeah. That is JFK Jr.
So that would be for your knees. I guess if you were sitting on the other side of the desk,
Yeah,
okay,
you
your
could.
knees would be hitting the.
Yeah, you could.
What
Scoot
a
down
funny
more.
thing. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
no, I guess this would be for whoever's sitting on the other side.
Oh, okay,
Their
that makes
knees would be
sense.
hitting the desk, so
Yeah.
it gave them somewhere to sit, maybe. How strange. Okay, well, maybe they were. I mean, I don't see how that could be for the other person's knees. It'd be some long knees. That's pretty. I don't know. Anyway, that's a lot of trivia on the desk, guys. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that little tidbit. But so it came from a ship. So I think that's actually is that something that I don't remember learning that in school? Did you ever learn that in
I think
school?
I vaguely remember hearing something about the death. I think it was in school. Some of this sounds familiar, but not all of it. So possibly.
Okay, so the next thing I have was on Cash Patel. There's an iconic image for you guys.
Cash Mattel. Is this a
He's the
is
new
that
attorney
is
or
that
FBI director.
is that a politician or is that a rapper?
Well, my understanding is that I think he worked under the Obama administration, actually, believe it or not. And I think he's a true believer, like he really thinks he believes in what's doing what's right, and I think it's kind of led him to where he's at now with Trump. Let's hope that he is indeed a straight shooter. So I think, this Dark MAGA component I think he's included because, he's definitely aware. Let's just put it that way. He's aware of a lot of things, like what we would consider conspiracy theories and stuff like that, in the news. He's aware of a lot of that stuff. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he actually goes after some of these people. So if you want to, we can read a little bit about him.
Yeah, let's get into who is this guy.
So he just got confirmed. Then it confirms Cash Patel to lead the FBI. So once this ad allows me to skip here, I'll allow this to play in the background a little bit as we're talking. And of course, it happens to be an extra long ad, but anyway, the Senate on Thursday confirmed Cash Patel to serve as head of the FBI, proving a pick with a string of controversial statements. Who has been accused by Democrats of directing a purge of Bureau employees. Patel was confirmed in a 51-49 vote. 2 Republicans, Senators Susan Collins from Maine and Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, voted against confirmation. Yep. So here are the proceedings they were going through there, and I think Mitch McConnell, also voted for him, but then put in his resignation. I guess he's not going to run again. So that's good. So yeah, Patel said that he would, quote, shut down FBI headquarters on his first day in office and turn it into a, quote, museum to the deep state. He's alarmed Democrats by including a list of, quote, government gangsters in a book he wrote by the same name. Senator Dick Durbin, the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, said Patel, quote, likely committed perjury when he denied having insight into FBI firings that came the very next day. Durbin, in a lengthy floor speech at turns, called Patel vindictive, dangerously politically extreme, and warned Republicans will come to regret this vote probably sooner rather than later. Well, I'm sure that would be true if they're criminals. A lot of this USAID stuff, by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with what's been going on with that, but
Oh yeah, of
there's
course.
a large agency that was involved in a lot of money laundering. And I think that what they're going to find is a lot of these politicians have been siphoning money for these various programs. I think they're taking money off the top or something like that. And because, they enter into politics, they're relatively, sometimes they're wealthy, but they're not like filthy rich. And then by the time they're in politics for 5-10 years, then suddenly it's like, well, where did all this money come from? Well, I think where they've been getting it is from these programs. And so I think that's what Kash Patel is really going to be getting to the root of in a lot of cases, is following the money. You know what I mean? And we're going to find a lot of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I think of, I don't want to quote this guy. He's got a solid paragraph there. A former public defender, Patel got his start in political realm as a staffer to the then House Intelligence Committee chair, Devin Nunes from California. Patel played a key role there in seeking to discredit the committee's Democrats' investigation of Trump's ties to Russia. So if you remember all the Russia phobia stuff, that included authoring a report analyzing FBI and Justice Department responses to the Russian election interference stuff. So this has been going on since like 2016. So a lot of what was going on then, he's going to be hopefully rectifying and getting involved with.
Okay.
Also, this involves the January 6th stuff. So the J6ers and whatnot. That's Epiphany. That's a very special date. And QAnon and all that stuff is connected to that. Well, I think now that he's in there, we might see these people finally getting pardoned and such, because they really haven't been getting fair treatment. They were even banned from the CPAC conference. Some of them were being asked to leave, even though they had rented booth space, which is like $2,000. Imagine renting a booth and trying to get your message out or whatever, and then being asked to leave. Not to mention you had to pay like $400 or $500 extra just to have like internet, being by like a receptacle for electricity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's enough about this. I just wanted to kind of give a brief update about something new that's happening. RFK also got the nomination finally, so we now have him.
I saw a really funny meme the other day that was like, it was like this guy in a greaser jacket with a baseball bat knocking on someone's door,
Yeah.
and the caption read, "RFK walking up to Monsanto's offices."
Well, he's, again, talk is one thing, walk is another, but I've heard his talk. He is very much aware of political and corrupt corporate influence and, umbrella corporations and Pfizer. He's on to Fauci. He knows he was engineering things, and they were using USAID money also to fund gain of function research. So,
I hope he
like,
goes
excuse me, I
after
didn't mean to
Bill
interrupt.
Gates and all the food stuff that he's got. He's got the a pill stuff that he sprays on produce
Oh
now
yeah,
that and
preserving it.
he even brags who does like apple cider vinegar and all that uh
Oh yeah,
got bought out by Katy Perry and her husband, and when Katy Perry and
Orlando
her husband
Bloom.
bought out that company, they made a deal with Bill Gates to have the apple apples be used as in their apple cider vinegar. So even though Bragg's was once healthy and still says organic and all that, it's it's genetically modified, poisoned essentially apples and Bragg's apple cider vinegar. So you know, hopefully
Are
not.
you saying? Oh, wait a second, Chris. Are you telling me that it does not appeal to you?
It does not appeal to me. Uh, so I think that will also be interesting to see if RFK goes over situations like that.
Well, I mean, he's already been talking about the dyes, the food dyes.
Yeah.
So I think it's promising. He's really been he's not been talking favorably about the pharmaceutical industries, and he did that before the vote.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they were going to block him, they would have done it. So I'm hoping to see some good come out of this. I mean, we're getting. I mean, there's definitely going to be bad, and believe me, I'm going to talk about the bad too.
Yeah.
Because
Speaking of the bad, what's the dark side?
yeah, I know. Unfortunately, there is the dark side of MAGA, so we'll be covering that now. Um, so we'll probably have a few good years though. Like if I had to really put a number on it, I'd say we'll get 3.5 years. From what prophecy seems to suggest, we'll have like once the peace. What we really got to watch for is the peace treaty. So the Abraham Accords thing. I'd say once that gets signed, that's when like the 3.5 years starts. Because it's supposed to be a 7-year peace, but it'll be 3.5 years because it gets broken in the middle. So we might even get 4 years. But yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about what is dark MAGA. But in Elon's own words, he likes to refer to it as dark Gothic MAGA. And MAGA itself is an interesting word. In some, religious denominations, if I don't know if you want to call Thelema a religion necessarily, but I think in the OTO or Thelema, they have a rank known as MAGA. But this is really a word for magician or magister or something like that, where it's like basically it's alluding to a spiritual rank. Essentially, they're trying to say that this person's capable of influence. Let's just say influence, right? So, like, how do you influence people? Well, you can do it through art, but you can also do it through memes and things like that too. So, and we'll be talking about memes at length here in a little bit. But Elon Musk unveiled what he called Dark Gothic MAGA. And so he says it himself when he says, "I'm Dark Gothic MAGA." Musk told the crowd at Trump's campaign event at Madison Square Garden. The energy in the room is incredible. So again, I like what's going on with the Trump stuff. Please don't get me wrong. I don't have Trump derangement syndrome or anything like that. We're just highlighting the dark MAGA stuff. And what is that, right? So the Tesla and SpaceX CEO,
Yeah.
again, there's
If
another
I
guy.
may interject
Chris.
very quickly, since you're prefacing all of this with we're being centrist here, and it's something that I said before the show that I'll briefly say really quickly now is uh, whether it's left or right, red or blue, we was going to get the panopticon. We're going to get some type of techno 1984 kind of world that we're building around us, because we've been building that for uh, decades now. Uh, it's kind of the fault of uh, the direction that we've been going for a while, and whether it's whatever side was in control of our current time, we're still going to do it. They're just going to do it, approach it in different ways. And so because we're in the MAGA time, which there, like Brayton said, there is good things happening that's going to make life better. There is also a dark side, and that's what we're focusing on, is the dark side. And the dark side is the panopticon is happening. 1984 is still pending.
Yeah, and I really hate to seem negative, but you're right. It's like the looming thing on the horizon. And again, I think I might have used this example the last time about how you can't lead a cattle straight to the slaughter. They possess a great deal of strength and they can resist you. And if they know you're trying to lead them there straight away, they will not go, and you cannot make them. However, you lead the cattle in a serpentine path back and forth, and they'll go without any resistance whatsoever straight through the slaughter gate, right? And so, we get this left-right sway thing. It gives us the illusion of choice every time we vote, and the politician changes, but you're still going, in that you're still advancing toward that end goal.
Yeah,
well, what is that end goal?
Hypnotizes people. The pendulum swinging left and right.
So you're talking about the panopticon, and that is the slaughter room door.
Yes.
That is what the mark of the beast is all about, is having a geofence all around you where everything you do, say, is tracked, recorded, you're followed. It's
really,
it's a scary reality.
Everything that we're talking about is transhumanism.
Well, and that includes the theory that the injections contain nanobots or something. Like, I'm not necessarily pushing that. I'm just saying there's those theories out there too. And there was even a story this week about there was a guy from China that he cashed out like 1.5 million Ethereum just for the sole purpose of attaching a message to it. Because remember, the censorship in China is pretty bad. And so on this, basically he appended to the ledger of this blockchain a message talking about, hey, this company is putting chips in us and controlling us, and it's crazy. You're like, whoa, that sounds pretty wild. But like, if that's really going on, that sounds like hell. And the thing is, they already got like social credit score and things like that going on over there.
It's not going to look the same in America as it did in China. It's going to be put around us differently here.
Well, it'll be a whole new thing, because once it's global, it'll then be perfected. And see, the Book of Revelations talks about how when this time comes, it will be there will be no flesh left on earth if it's permitted to continue its plan, like what it is intended to do. So there's this divine intervention that takes place, and there's a halt put to whatever this is. So we can only assume that AI is going to play some part in it, because how could it? I don't know. Logic kind of dictates that, right? So when we're talking about Dark MAGA, please understand it's really technology merging with politics is kind of what we're talking about. And this is nothing new. This kind of thing started even back to We're talking Operation Paperclip, World War II era, Jack Parsons and the rocketry program. I mean, Elon's the modern day Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons was meddling around with summoning demons and stuff, because what they would do is they would channel these demons, and then they would give their inventions and stuff from these spirits. And so that's no different than eating from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. You don't know what fruits on that tree are good and bad. And so
And
one thing
Elon was calling AI demons like a decade ago.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to bring that link up. But you're right. He did say, you're right, about 10 years ago, with AI, we're summoning the demon. He says, that example with the guy in the holy water, and he's thinking he can control the demon. And he even winks at the camera. He's like, no, you can't. And then 10 years later, Grok 3. So, I really do think there's something to this, because he knows that. And so his goal is to merge with the machine in an effort to persuade it or influence the development, something like that. So it's as if he recognizes the inevitable.
They can't stop it. It's just like when the development of nuclear weapons, and Oppenheimer was giving the
somebody's going to develop it, right?
Yeah, the bringer of death.
So okay, so here's the question then, Chris. What is the term for that? What is the vehicle for ideas? It is the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. So you got spirits flying around out here, planting ideas in people's heads. That's why we need to wear the armor of God.
Yeah.
What was it?
Genius is another word for it.
That's exactly right.
In Latin, the Latin root for the word genius, someone might say that you was born with a genius, like a guardian angel, like a spirit that came into this life with you, that gave you your knowledge, gave you your artistry or whatnot, and gave you your whatever you're good at. And now we describe genius to the person, like they are a genius. But if we go back to the original Latin root, are there geniuses around? Are there genies around?
It's actually the intelligence that's living within them. That's the genius. Yeah. And you got me thinking too, because people do like to call Elon genius, and I think I read that his IQ, not that I even know much about IQ, but his is apparently or allegedly 155. I don't even know like how good that really is, but I guess that's close to Einstein level intellect or whatever. So you could say that he is himself inhabited by a genius of some sort. So it would almost be that's kind of interesting speculation to wonder, like, is he actually possessed by a spirit?
So we're talking about really quickly.
Who knows? Maybe.
So we're talking about Einstein and Oppenheimer, geniuses of their time, when they're inevitable to create nuclear weapons. And now we're talking about Elon and all the people from Oracle and OpenAI and whatnot, and they are Dark MAGA magicians, and they have geniuses, genies. They're summoning demons through AI. All of this sounds like some fantasy stuff, but it's real, isn't it?
Oh, it is real. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's all happening right in front of us, like a story or a movie. And I'm not like going to jump on the bandwagon and say that he's stealing money or anything like that. I think there's a lot of ridiculous criticisms being hurled at him right now. I think the legitimate things to look at are, okay, he is gaining access to sensitive information and technologies, because with the rocketry, he has a lot of that. And then he's in a lot of these government agencies and has access to sensitive information, but he's also leaking private messages from Twitter and beefs and misunderstandings that he's having with people. And these are even just like casual things. This is not even like big deals, So it's like, and then there's all the drama with these various women, and it just makes me wonder, like, well, not to sound too conspiracy minded, but some of these people could be like foreign agents or something that could be like compromising him in some way and stealing information, or who knows, like we don't know. And so I don't know. I just think it's really it's like a new phenomena, because we have a true populist movement
aren't natural births, are they? They're all inseminated.
No, some of them are legit. I don't know if that's necessarily the proper word to use, but a lot of them are IVF, because some of these children he's had with women exclusively that way. I think Grimes, which we have an article on Grimes. I think we have and X is their son, by the way. So the one that's in the desk photo nowadays is him. And so I think that they had several children that were like natural children, I will say. And then they think they might have had one that was IVF, but there's been a few women that's been the exclusive method. And I don't know if it's in every case, but sometimes they even have to sign non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that. And so you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make light of his personal life, but he is on a pedestal right now. And it's like he also lied about his, I mean, this might seem trivial, but like, he does pretend to play video games, but was actually hiring people to play the game for him and get like the highest rank, and then pretending it was him. And so it was obvious to people that he didn't have knowledge of the game like he should if he was really playing it. So he got found out on that too. So it's just strange behavior, taking people's checks from Twitter and then giving them back. It's just, it just makes you nervous, when somebody's because he's behaving in the ways that a lot of people accuse Trump of. Like, oh, he's too close to the levers of power, he's crazy or whatever. But I think Trump's a much more mature person contrasted to like Elon for comparison. But he's been given a great deal of authority by him. And just so that because we're on the topic of Dark MAGA and the apocalypse and all that, the way Revelation 13 reads is that the first beast comes, and then the second beast comes, and the mark of the beast, as it's known, is created by the second beast in the image of the first beast. And so I think with what we're seeing here, we got brain implants, RFID, universal basic income, digital cryptocurrency, digital IDs, and all that stuff. All the ingredients are in this. For the soup is in the pot. All we need is the spark to light that fire. So like if they have a economic crash, internet blackout, whatever it is, they're going to try and pull. I think we could see them try to reboot things. And this will be kind of the thing, if this catapults it into that, right? So that first beast gives authority to the second beast. And that's what's happened here, is like a new department with Elon at the head. And I'm not saying it is exactly what's going on. I'm just saying we should pay attention, because, he does want to stick a chip in our head and connect everybody to the internet. And by the way, we got Starlink, which means we have internet covering every square inch of the earth. So it's something.
And again, that's what Rudolph
can't even get away from.
predicted in the 1920s.
yeah. So anyway, don't want to like be what people call black pillar or doomer or whatever. Like, there's all these negative words for people that are just being like, hey, think about it, guys. I'm just saying. Like, I don't want to be the, you know, I'm not crying wolf, I don't think. I think there's plenty of wolves to point at. But anyway, and the fact of the matter is, he's even showing us too, like when he shows up at these high visibility public events, like wearing costumes like the demon armor with the upside down cross on the goat's head, and had an upside down cross on the back too, and therefore I think that's when he was in his Diablo 4 era, which I've played Diablo franchise. It's a good one, I guess, but I didn't enjoy anything past 2. But anyway, he wore a white on white jacket to the Met Gala a few years back, and it said Novus Ordo Secularum on the back, which means New Order of the Ages. And that's when we kind of started to see these like inklings that maybe, hey, is this guy, the super elite New Order type guy? And then it's just kind of solidified, a little since then, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, again, not trying to be like a negative Nancy or whatever, but I just noticed that with Dark MAGA, we're starting to see huge technological influence, like a lot of IVF stuff. It's just weird.
So you're talking about Elon because he was recently in the news with a chainsaw, right?
Well, yeah, man. So I have a link on that too, right here. So, Doge is being equated to like coming in and gutting out the agencies, and they're doing a great job. In fact, we might even be getting a $5,000 tax refund check, which, hey, it's our money. So I guess how can you argue with that, right? In fact, they might even be getting rid of the income tax. And so it's like, how can you argue with a lot of these great things? We're winning, Chris. You might get tired of winning, as Trump said. But so, I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of fun until it's no longer fun. But I don't know. So anyway, I'll play this, but it's muted. Okay. So just watch him here. And we are muting it just because we don't have to deal with copyright stuff, and we can just talk as the video is playing. But he comes out here wearing a thick chain. Oh, sorry, I'm not used to wearing a headset, so I brush the mic occasionally. But yeah, he's got the shades and he's got a thick chain on, and this is the Argentinian president, Milei, I think his name is, and he's handing him a rather ornate chainsaw. And can you explain to us what's written on it?
So it's engraved, and there is a article I found from the Times of the India Times article is what I found it on here, is what I have pulled up. And it allegedly says Viva la Libertad Carrajo. I completely mispronounced it, but it translates allegedly to "Long live freedom, damn it."
Hey, yeah. And so he's calling this the chainsaw for bureaucracy. So, they're going in there and they're taking out, like, if you've ever cleared old, wood and forests, it's necessary for the health of the forest sometimes. In fact, if it's when you don't do that you end up with like a lot of these wildfire problems that we've been seeing. So, it's kind of metaphorical, I guess, in a way. Did you notice on did you did you notice on the pull string there? Oh, hold on. It's hard to tell. Can you see right here where my mouse is?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to catch it, but yeah, there we go. It's an iron knuckles, dude. Like it's
Oh,
tied. That's how you would start it. You'd put your fingers in the iron knuckles to pull start it.
yeah.
That's so funny.
That,
So
that
obviously, this is one of the most impractical things ever. But
yeah. It's not like a little like your average chainsaw or even like a mini one that you would use in transportation. Because like every guy that builds his own log cabin and has his own little family, um, and is independent, needs a axe or a chainsaw, some type of tool for firewood and whatnot.
it's just so funny to me, Chris. It's something I really feel like it's all a dream still, and that I'm
It
actually
is
in a
a
coma.
dream.
I'm in a coma right now, Chris. Wait, you
It's
just
the
need to wake me
American
up.
dream.
It's we're in the American dream right now.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're listening to this, guys, you're in the American dream. Go spin a top somewhere and see if it falls over. And here's another great picture. This one right here. He's just having a blast. You can tell both of them.
I mean, if
I
I
mean,
had a very ornate chainsaw, you know, I would be having a blast too.
oh, they gave him a painting too. Check it out. That's very Elon. It's even
Yeah.
got his car in the photo. So this is at the CPAC conference, by the way, the same conference that denied January 6th victims from participating. So, um, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now that Cash is back in there, if they're going to vindicate those people. I can't. I surely thought they would allow some of them in there. I could understand if there was like some they really didn't think should be in there. Okay, fine. But like, I don't know, man. It seems like part of the base. And see, that's what I've been trying to say about Dark MAGA in general. See, he is there. He is there. J6ers are not. J6ers are MAGA. You feel me? Red Hat MAGA.
Yeah.
Dark MAGA is the new CPAC. He describes himself, and again, I hate to keep giving disclaimers. I just feel like I'm being a hater. He describes himself as a cultural Christian. I don't know too many people that would describe themselves that.
What is a cultural Christian?
Well, it's not a spiritual Christian. In other words, he likes the value. He was even talking about in this conference, like he grew up in South Africa watching anime and movies and American culture, et cetera, et cetera. So he
Oh,
feels he is American by proxy because he's consumed our culture. And so I think that he's also Christian by proxy in that way. You see what I mean? Like he's
yeah.
not really Christian because of his beliefs. He's Christian because of his values.
Keep this whole culture by American by cultural proxy through media in mind for my segment because it's going to play into it for sure.
Yeah, and I know it sounds bad to talk about immigration in any kind of negative way, but the fact of the matter is this guy is a legal immigrant. And there's a lot of not non-native folks in the Dark MAGA kind of movement this time around, and I think that we're just seeing like it's changing I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a new party form out of all this because the left has just fallen apart. The right is alienating its base and embracing the establishment in some cases, but at the same time, now Trump's coming in and he kind of had to make concessions with both parties in a way. I mean, he's traditionally a Democrat, but now a Republican, but he wasn't even welcome in the Republican Party, if you recall. So like he's kind of a third party candidate already. So
Yeah.
I just think that we're going to see a new party coming to emerge out of all this, and it's going to be the MAGA thing. It's just, what is it going to look like exactly? Because if Elon stays heavily involved in it, I mean, he's going to have a big influence, good or bad.
A cultural party.
Well, and he also owns X. So, I mean, you have to
A
consider
techno party.
Yeah, so like and there's still a great deal of censorship that goes on X. I mean, he wants to pride himself on the fact that it's free speech, but yet you can still get strikes on there, believe it or not, for talking about certain things. So the truth is still not tolerated very well. And so I think once AI starts hitting the scene, we're going to see censorship like you've never seen before. And oh, I think I jumped the gun a little bit. Sorry. I was going to say, but you can't kill memes. And so like, once this AI starts doing more heavy censorship and the social credit score stuff starts hitting the scene, I think that's when people are going to start feeling the sting more, and we're going to start realizing like, oh, what kind of panopticon hell did we allow to grow up around us, all in the name of whatever, MAGA or whatever. And because you got to remember, back in 2016, Trump was even talking about the creating by land, air, and sea the biometric entry exit visa tracking system. That's a mouthful, and I talked about that the last time we were on.
LOL to kek.
Yeah. So so before I finished out the Dark MAGA portion, that's probably going to be a segment that we update periodically, and I don't want to hyperfixate on it, but at the same time, Elon keeps giving us plenty to talk about. So I guess until that's played out, I might mention it a few more times. But at one point I had mentioned it, I think last time it didn't go into depth, and so this time I got a link for it to just further explain a little bit about what I know this is very nuanced, and if you don't follow this stuff closely, it's probably easy to miss some of this stuff. And so at one point he changed his name to Kekius Maximus, which just sounds like a playful Pepe the Frog type thing, right? But Pepe is actually Italian, if you didn't know. And by extension, he's Roman, right? So like,
and Pepe has its own mythology.
Yeah.
Well. It's its own lore.
But he is Italian, though, believe it or not. So it is. I mean, I would never normally have thought of Pepe as being Roman like this, but he is Roman. And so
the Kek is the Egyptian god, isn't it?
Well, yes, but Pepe the Frog is Italian. See, that's what's so weird about memes, is that they're really just an alloy and an amalgamation of all sorts of different things. And
yeah,
this Kek thing is
maybe in the future we'll do a breakdown of Pepe mythology.
Well, so there's a record you can get. It's called Meme Magic or something like that, and the song's called Chatelet, and that's Pepe, but I think it's Italian. Yeah, it's really weird. But anyway, I'm not going to go ever long about this, but at one point, Elon did change his name on Twitter to Kekius Maximus. Okay, seems like a joke, right? No big deal. Well, when you actually look into it, though, they kind of go into some of the origins of what Kek is. Kek actually started out as a World of Warcraft thing because orcs, you couldn't understand orcs when you were talking, like it would be some other language when you were on the server. So if an elf was trying to talk to an orc, it would show up something else. So when they typed LOL, it actually was Kek. So that's where Kek gets its origination. But Kek is also the name of an ancient Egyptian primordial god of chaos, which happens to be in the form of a frog, which is one of 8 of what's known as the octagode. And so Kek happens to represent darkness and chaos. And so Kek then got assimilated to that because of the happenstance with the name. But then there's also Pepe the frog and Chatelet. And so here we are today. And this is what we are talking about with memes is so Elon's tapping into it. What was it?
Yeah, what was that? Well, he's also referencing another person's name.
Well, I was getting to it actually. It's just that this I didn't expect this article to be quite so long. So, but yes, so there's actually some the Roman part right here. Yes, so the Cecius Maximus. This was on December 31st when he changed his profile picture to the Pepe the frog in ancient Roman armor, and then so this guy here is the historical reference for the Cecius. It's thought to be the historical reference. Is Marcus Nonius Marcrinius was a Roman senator and general during the reigns of emperors Antonius Pius Lucius Verus and Marcus Aurelius. Marcrinius was suffect consul in the Nundinium of April through June 154 as a colleague of Patius. So it sounds like to me this is one way of saying he served a term in the Senate. According to his tomb's inscriptions, he was originally from Brixia and was an advisor to Marcus Aurelius. So, in other words, Trump is Marcus Aurelius, and Elon sees himself as this Roman consul who also.
You see, Trump always has that stoic face. He's very reserved, where Elon is kind of the opposite. He's over here going crazy with a chainsaw.
Well, yeah, they're like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the Dark MAGA. It's like Jekyll Hyde. You got the red hat. It's business. We're professional. Then you got the the dark hat doesn't have all the it doesn't have the tethers. You see what I mean? He can act crazy and wild and get away with it, whereas Trump can only do that within certain margins. Not to mention he's under the constant threat of sham prosecutions, which I'm sure Elon will eventually have to deal with that himself. But anyway, this guy governed a Roman province in Asia, so I don't know if that will become significant at all. But according to this map, that was pretty far south.
Really quickly, sorry to interrupt you, but Tim in the chat said Venom v Spider-Man. So you have the black on red. So you have the Venom symbiote when he takes over the Spider-Man suit.
Well, that's a tangled web indeed. Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is, like, if I have to, I hope there's not any. Oh, there was one weird thing we didn't talk about before we end this segment. With the iconic, maybe you can put that image up of the desk again. So we were having a conversation before we began recording, and I've went long this evening, by the way, on my segment. My apologies. We were having a conversation prior about the sun and what he was saying. Do you have that picture up?
I have the picture up of him in the desk.
So there's some audio and video you can catch of Elon standing in the Oval Office with Trump and talking, and they're just talking about the Doge stuff. And again, wonderful news. Happy to hear it all. And it's even cute that his son's in there, because
Oh, it's
again, it's this
adorable.
nostalgic throwback, and all
Yeah.
that. I love it. But his son did say some really weird things while he was in there. And I don't know if anybody really paid attention, but if you actually like play it slow and maybe repeat it a few times, you can hear what he's saying. And he's saying, some people says he's talking to somebody across the room, but he actually says something about, "You're not the president. Shut up." So who's he talking to? Obviously, if Elon's talking, he's not talking to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I think it was a little suspect. I think he's talking to the president. And so it makes me wonder, what's he hearing Elon say
See, Tim's
behind
in the,
closed doors?
yeah, Tim said the exact same thing I told you when we was talking about it. Tim says kids say the darndest things.
Yeah, they say the damnedest things, especially when they're repeating what their parents say, because that's where they pick it up a lot of times. So I just have to wonder. It's like, what's going on here? I hope we don't have an et tu brute moment, like
Yeah.
where you have a betrayal or whatever. And so that would be truly a dark MAGA moment, I think. So I hope we're not seeing something weird like that transpire. Because again, we got this Kennedy thing. This Kennedy theme is still lingering here. We got, they tried to do the same thing to Trump. Now we got RFK in the administration. So
Yeah.
here's this image too being repeated, and it's just like,
Very
man.
mimetic,
Yeah, it's mimetic. You're right. That's what I'm saying.
Nostalgic.
They're like, it's like neuro linguistic programming or something.
Really quick to end your segment, we have a little documentary film to shout out, don't we?
Well, like V for Vendetta said, you can kill the man, but you cannot kill the meme. Well, I mean, idea, I guess he said, but
Yeah. So we have it's a documentary film called "You Can't Kill Meme," and it's a documentary film about how it is a pretty wild. Some of the people they talk to are pretty far out there. I will say that when you get into the people who mess around with the cult and stuff and incels and people who are always online, you're gonna meet some weird characters, some out there characters. But the film is essentially about how meme culture and the rise of Pepe and Keck and incel culture and online quote wizards helped Donald Trump win his first term.
I cannot argue against that effectively. There does seem to be some weird mysticism hanging around it, especially with the number 7. There's a lot to it. I would recommend it. I remember we watched some of this together. Oh, excuse me. Keep forgetting.
It's a very interesting documentary for sure.
Yeah, and
final thoughts on your.
They do a lot of don't they do a lot of interviews with people from 4chan and I mean, it's pretty like in the trenches interviews and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's why I said some of it. They interview some out there characters. Some of the interviews, some of those people were like, "Wow, that is
that's definitely a cult classic for sure." And for anybody that appreciates internet culture, I guess one for the record books. But yeah, I think that's about all. I just wanted to kind of round out those points, but I don't want to go long about anything else. Just stay tuned for more Dark MAGA updates.
Yeah. Thanks, Branch. I'm fascinated hearing you talk recently about Dark MAGA. I know the whole point of the show was uh, to do an hour-long show, but we're running long. This is only our second episode, so we're still kind of testing out the waters and everything. So it's totally fine. Instead of our long break, we're just going to take a quick short break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about another documentary film and explain why teenagers simply do not exist. We'll be right back in a few seconds. Welcome back. Just doing that instead of our 2-minute break. Anyways.
And I feel you, man. It's a good way to hard edit.
Yeah. So now, welcome to the King segment of the King and Branch show, where we talk about movies and culture and whatnot. And so today we are going to be talking about a documentary film by a director named Matt Wolf called Teenage. And I think, Brent, don't you have a couple of tabs for me as we get talking about this? Awesome. So here's the IMDb page, Teenage by Matt Wolf. He also has another documentary that looks interesting called Recorder, about a woman that recorded network television for years constantly. And because she realized, just like the internet, network television was ephemeral. And she has like decades of network television and finding inconsistencies in reporting and events and news and whatnot, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So that is what looks like an interesting documentary. But first, when we talk about a different documentary Matt Wolf has done called Teenage, and I found this interesting because I had my suspicions for a little while that teenagers don't exist, and then lo and behold, as the saying goes, there's a documentary about it, and it's very much just like collecting teen culture throughout the decades. It's not getting into the psychology of it, as I'll dip my toes into it here in a second. This is mainly just like a historical thing of them making a collage of teen culture throughout the years.
Does that include like fads and things like that, like hula
Yeah,
hoops and stuff?
fads. It's all political stuff, video clips, styles, music, interviews of teenagers from over the decades and whatnot. So it's more of just like trying to preserve culture. But if you're into psychology and archetypes, like we are here on channel KOK, you can understand the esoteric sides of these things. So that's what we're going to be getting today as I kind of give my review of a sort of review of this documentary film. So if it does interest you, it's Teenage. I believe it's from 2013 by Matt Wolf. Brant, did you want to read the synopsis really quick before we are done with this page?
Sure. Just give me a moment here to figure out how to close. There we go. So it says here, teenagers did not always exist. In this living collage of rare archival material, filmed portraits and voices lifted from early 20th century diary entries, a struggle erupts between adults and adolescents to define a new idea of youth. And I think that kind of sums it up right there, is that, like you were saying, this didn't actually exist before this.
Yep.
I guess, when life expectancies were a lot shorter and things like that, you kind of started your life sooner. Because, I mean, now we got people living with their parents probably till they're 30, when most people were already had children and died by that age a couple hundred years ago, So,
Yeah. So, to kind of go over a little bit of this. So, basically, what we see in this documentary is we see that teen culture or youth culture was it was a mix of two things. It was one, in Western society we have we had the men going to the corporate offices. They're not working on their own land, and then they'll leave. They're going away from the family, and then you have wartime. So the dads or the uncles, are going to war. Maybe their mom is even a nurse or works in medical or something. And then the kids are going off to school, and then when they come home, the parents are either working or too tired or whatever. So you have this kind of suburban Western culture that was arising from that time. So that's part of it. The other part of it is you have things like the Industrial Revolution, and the corporatization, the corporate world kind of targeting this group. So it kind of started to form this thing, and I talk a lot on this channel about archetypes. And for example, again, I'll show this graph: king, magician, lover, warrior. Those are the four archetypes of the mature masculine. And then the boy, we have the boy versions underneath it that grow into the full masculine. And how do you get those? Well, you have to raise your kid. How do you raise your kid? You have to give them a rite of passage. You have to make sure your boys become men and your girls can go into womanhood and all that. And you need those rites of passage in your culture. Well, when you don't have that rites of passage in your culture, they and the parents are away at work or at war or whatever, and your kids are just taught by your teachers in school, then they'll let go to wander and go play by themselves. You have them kind of kids trying to initiate other kids, teens initiating other teens. So that's where you get the teen culture aspect of it. And so we have this article here about the history of teenage, and that's of course James Dean from Rebel Without a Cause, which was a big film in the teen exploitation films or teen exploitation films, which is what birthed of coming of age films. Can you scroll down a little bit there, Branch, for me? So we can see the title of that article.
So this article right here?
Yeah. Can you possibly read just a little bit of that, like that first paragraph?
A brief history of the teen. How 2 world wars and the Industrial Revolution created the modern teenager. Most people point to Rebel Without a Cause, the seminal 1955 James Dean movie about youth rebelling against their parents, as the introduction of the modern teenager. But the teenager began long before that. The history of the teen begins at the turn of the 20th century. In 1900, much like flight or motion pictures, the teenager wasn't a relevant category. You were a child, then you got a job, and you were an adult. Much of what defines the modern teen, listlessness, dissatisfaction, and rebellion against the inadequacies of the previous generation, and an obsession with freedom, especially as it is relates to automobiles. It didn't exist because the freedom to have those dissatisfactions wasn't available to the adolescents of the day.
Yeah. So, like that is saying you had youth culture coming up, and you had like I said the teen genre or the teen exploitation, the teen exploitation, um, and you had youth gangs. They would start going around in gangs and whatnot. But before we get into that, let's define what is teen exploitation.
I've never heard the word before.
Yeah, uh, it's a it, the. Can you read the definition for us?
It's just a simple, it doesn't really give a good one. It just says the exploitation of them. It's more or less just it's not a good, not
Oh,
giving examples so much as a definition. I guess
yeah,
this was a poor source.
yeah.
But anyway, you can just
Essentially,
explain it.
it's just a genre of film. You have like black exploitation films. And
So it's a genre.
yeah, it's a genre. Exploitation films are just like drive-in movies. They're cheap to be made. They're targeting a very specific audience.
Oh,
Um,
okay, I see what you mean. Like a
right.
formula, like a boy band kind
Yeah,
of deal.
exactly. It's corporate targeting. So you had that going on, but how essentially how teens got birth, um, besides the whole corporate side of things. Um, so since the parents are either at work or at war, um, youth culture kids after school they would go. And kind of form gangs, and that's where you kind of get the greaser gangs and whatnot, um, and all kinds of your youth gang, and they would cause trouble, and so uh, the government needed a way to find um, a way to tame the youth, or as they would refer to them as hooligans. This hooliganism. Um, so they this military person. I don't have his name here, but it was a person in the. But it was the British military originally, and then it came over to the states, to the United States. Uh, Created a training manual for youth called Scouting for Boys. Um, it was basically a manifesto of the creation of the Boy Scouts. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Where
so,
I was a Boy Scout, by the way.
yeah. So the whole idea of the Boy Scouts was because no one was watching these kids after school, and they was, as the saying goes, raising hell, right? They was causing troubles. They was creating youth gangs, and they
I
was,
credit the Boy Scouts for my moral development. Uh, I walked myself to church a lot of times and participated in Boy Scouts, and I feel like it gave me a pretty good moral foundation. And
yeah.
without that, I don't know, man. Maybe I wouldn't turn out so well.
Exactly. How many movies did we see still to this day about trying to keep the kids off the streets and away from gang culture and whatnot. Um, and that's what the Boy Scouts was. It was supposed to be a brotherhood to initiate or pseudo initiate boys into manhood.
Well,
And to,
dude, there were Initiations, speaking of which, I remember being at summer camp and I got what you call tapped for the OA, the Order of the Arrow. There was some like Native American themed special thing you could do if you went to summer camp. Sometimes certain kids got picked for that, and they would at nighttime there'd be like these big bonfires, and all the scouts would be in a big circle, and the native dudes would be walking around. Of course, they weren't really natives; they were people dressed up as natives, but they were walking around, and your scoutmaster would come up behind you and hold a sash above your head, and they would hit you in the chest and drag you off into the darkness. And that is a rite of passage of sorts, because you were scared out of your mind and like, what's going on, and see, that
Exactly.
fear type element too is a
Yeah.
lot of times what's present in some of these rites of passage. And
Yeah.
you had you had to come back to the camp later and do like a vow of silence and work and fast and stuff like that. It was really interesting rite of passage.
Yeah, and the whole goal of the Scouts, like you're saying, is to install patriotism, courage, and self-reliance to young boys.
Yeah, I remember one particularly strange segment of it, which I say strange because it's the only time in my life I can ever remember doing this. But at one point, every scout that was at the OA retreat, it was, of course, nighttime, and we had to go through a forest. Basically, they had a really long rope just going through the forest, and you were blindfolded, and you just had to hold on to that rope the whole time you were going through the forest, and you just in silence. And it was just one of the strangest things I'd ever done that up to that point in my life, because at this time I'm only, probably 16 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the self-reliance stuff, you're right, because you also learn how to start fires for cooking, and how to handle firearms, and
But
how to
also,
camp under tents and stuff.
yeah, also around this time you had kids working in factories and whatnot, and so you had the need for child labor laws as well, to not
Yeah.
endanger kids.
Yeah, man, and you get into the topic of the orphan trains and all sorts of things like that. So it's like you're right. The government's probably starting to look at this at some point and being like, well, what do we do with all these hooligans? Like you said, it's like, oh, we'll just put them to work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, and then you have World War I happen, um, and you know a lot of young people died in war, um, and then once the war was over, you had like a growing divide between the generation that started the war and the generation that actually fought the war. Uh, and so you had like the start of distrust between the generations, on top of not seeing your dad work, not seeing your dad be a man and everything, and do his labor and learn from watching him. Now uh you, you and your friends are dying from a war that was started by government people who are older than you. So now you're upset at the older generation who started the war, and you have a distance between your own father. So now you have this growing divide between family, the generations between in the family. So it's like once was as a family unit, now it's fractured, and it's like this random people of various ages living in the same house, coming and going, and kind of having distrust and being suspicious about the other people in the house almost.
Well, and also moms were going to work. This whole Rosie the Riveter thing started around that time too. So I think the females going to the workplace, kind of that trend got started around that time as well, which
Yeah,
also eroded the nuclear family, like you were just mentioning.
yeah. and then after that, you have like we're talking about the corporatization and the culture, the pop culture, you know, and that is of course jazz. Jazz was a big scene for the youth, uh, and rock and roll, um, and you know, going out and partying amongst your fellow youths, uh, going out and wandering and playing music and listening to music and making art. So you started to have them kind of uh, they're trying to and even in the documentary Teenage, they go you hear them talk about they're looking for something. And what I've talked about in my last two reviews on the channel, for both Almost Famous, which is an coming of age film. So it had roots in teen exploitation because it's a coming of age film. And then The Last Action Hero. In both those films, I go, these main characters are boys who are looking for a male mentor to initiate them. And so you have that's what was happening here is you have these kids listening to music and partying and wandering, and they're like we're looking for something where they're looking for someone to initiate them into adulthood, because teenagers are being a teenager is more just like being in like limbo, right?
Hey, you made me think of something. From what was it, Peter Pan and the Lost Boys?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're kind of trapped in that stage, like you're saying.
yeah, for sure. And like you say, that goes into the whole the trains and everything, like the all of that with the youth. And like I say, you had propaganda and marketing, uh, with all of them, from movies to music to the clothes. Now you have clothes that are marketed towards teenagers, right? And used to it would just be they would wear smaller versions of whatever the adults would wear, because the moms would probably make the clothes and mend the clothes and whatnot, right? So there's really no difference between what you was wearing and what your parents were wearing. And now it's now you have adult clothes, you have baby clothes, you have teenage clothes, you have tween clothes. um And it's even with the Boy Scouts, they're uh, that's set up for uh, boys to be initiated into manhood through the wild man, having mentors push them through the wild man archetype, um, and
Well,
go.
the degree path is actually modeled after Native American stuff, for the most part. So there's like a element of spirituality woven into it. Um, you're always taught to have reverence toward any religion, but but itself, however, contains this like element of the eagle. And like if you were to get Eagle Scout, that's the highest rank. But there's Tenderfoot. You start out with Tenderfoot and end with Eagle. So what's the difference between a Tenderfoot and an Eagle Talon? Like that's Eagle Talons are much harder than a Tenderfoot. I guess that's something I never really thought about till now.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to harden you up. And now look at our scouts. We first we had Boy Scouts, and then we had Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and now we just have Scouts, and which is it doesn't quite work because, like I've said in the past, uh, women can only initiate the girls into womanhood, and only men can initiate boys into manhood. And boys need a mother, and daughters need their father. Because there's a duality there. Um, but when it comes to these initiation rites, uh, it's it's structured a certain way for a reason. um, and now they're we have to be fair and incorporate everyone all together. So it creates a conflict that we've lost. The creation of the Scouts was to solve a problem of wandering youths, which was caused by the breaking of the family unit, and now the whole solution of having Scouts to have an initiation space for use into adulthood or is now being fractured because you can't have those intimate spaces anymore. Because
And if, in fact, this is what the troop I grew up with doesn't exist anymore, because once the politics started changing the way it did, he quit. My scoutmaster quit because it began to go against the traditional values that they had. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It started getting kind of weird.
yeah. And next we in the timeline, there was you had the Great Depression. There was no more work. The parents couldn't raise the kids, so the kids would just become homeless and start wandering. So you had the boxcar kids and whatnot. And then you had the Nazi youth and different political youth groups arising around the same time. And the Nazi used youth culture, which I know. I'm not saying Donald Trump is Hitler. I'm not saying that. However, look at how Donald Trump can speak to the youth, and you had Adolf Hitler who also spoke to the youth. So there is somewhat of a parallel there.
Have you saw those posts where they've taken the speech of Hitler and transposed it into English?
Yes.
And it really doesn't sound any different than what we hear today. So you might be making some interesting points there.
Yeah. So we have, and what are boys looking for? Gen Z boys are going to manosphere spaces, and they're going to the right because they've been pushed out of society. They've been told to be, that they can't be masculine, that they're bad or whatever. They've been so downplayed for so long. And now Gen Z men are just like, what do we do? So the only place that they're looking around for a mentor, and they're finding, since we have online spaces now, they're looking at Joe Rogan's and Andrew Tate's, which I think it's too far in one direction. I think the pendulum has swung so far in the other way that your manosphere spaces are guiding men into or
the toxic masculinity realm.
Not necessarily toxic masculinity. I'll really quickly bring up because the toxic masculinity doesn't exist, but I think it's between the poles, right? I don't have it with me, but I saw a video on X. Speaking of Elon, and I think it was like in New Zealand, there was a like a pride parade, LGBTQ, and they was all marching and whatnot, and a group of young men who have formed a group that they refer to themselves as Man Up, went and marched opposing the pride parade, and they was beating on their chests, screaming, hulking out, if you will. They was invoking the wild man archetype, and it's because they've been pushed so far to say that, to tell them that they was bad for doing nothing, and that's what happens. And that's what your Andrew Tates and whatnot will be guiding the men towards, but that isn't part of the healthy masculine. There is, but really, you have to look at it and be like, well, what other choices do they have? They've been pushed so hard. What's their option? So you can't really. On one hand, they may be going too far, but you can ponder if you can blame them or not. But that's why I say it's going between the two poles here, right? They're not going the healthy path. They're being polarized.
It's all part of the plan, Chris.
Yep. Um.
Well, and again, it's the nanny state and Big Brother.
Yep.
You keep the people, it doesn't matter how old somebody is, mentally, they might be a teenager in their head, and you look at the way people behave nowadays. So, I mean, I kind of see what has been done to us. And I heard today, even the blue light from television screens and phone screens and stuff, that is a lot of what controls us too. And you wouldn't think that it could do that, but it can. So I've been using the blue light filter on all of my devices for
I always
months
do.
now. But yeah, I make the special effort to do it though, because I tell you, that flicker rate, man, like it's not just interrupting your sleep, it's actually putting you in like a suggestive state.
Yep. Propaganda. And then lastly, wrapping, kind of heading towards the end of my segment here. And then, of course, and then after World War II and Nazi youth culture, you had the hippies, you had the rise of the next wave of feminism, and even more propaganda. So, and I talk about in my review of Almost Famous is the manic pixie dream girl, or the wild woman who is only pseudo initiated, are trying to initiate young men in the hippie culture, and the young men are trying to pseudo initiate young women. So you have kids trying to initiate themselves, and it's becoming a disaster. And then you have the propaganda of all the drug testing and the this the psyops and or the government and corporate propaganda that was happening to the youth around that time as well. And then, of course, you have the star machine, Hollywood, right? How many horrific tales has people like Shirley Temple have told after she grew up? You can find videos and interviews with her of saying like there was creepy dark stuff happening to her as a kid. Same thing as in modern times, you have that documentary series Quiet on Set, right? About the child stars. And like I said, the teen exploitation films of the Rebel Without a Cause, and I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, and all this and that became coming of age films, became slasher films, became all these things. Um, and then on top of teen culture, you have tween culture. So you had all these things kind of building up, and you might want to say, well, Chris, why would they um you might ask me, well, why would they want that? So teens are a symptom of a fracturing system of how every other culture has just boys and girls and then adults. You have kids and you have adults, right? Um, and now we have this Western culture and the breaking of that ritual of that system, and the breaking of the family unit, and now we have teen culture, and it's been um, propagated, propagandized, and now it's being interwoven with consumerism. Like kids, uh, they as they say in the documentary, teenage kids hold the key to whatever is popular, right? Whatever fashion or whatever. You think about how when you're older, the joke is, well, I don't know what's popular anymore because I'm old and I'm not cool anymore because I'm old or whatever. We kind of pity ourselves in our age instead of thinking about our wisdom in a way. And now films are even, instead of being about of coming of age of your teenage years, you might have a millennial film about a aimless 20 something moving back in with their parents, and after a divorce, and their life is aimless and all this and that. um
Or the plot to some Hallmark movie thing,
yeah, exactly.
basically. I'm going to
And
rebuild my life, my hometown.
yeah, so you go from the teenage being the lost years where you're trying to find yourself or whatever, to now it's the aimless 20 somethings. And they say first in the teenage years, go, okay, it's fine, you're finding yourself. You have your 20s and the rest of your life. And now it's, oh well, it's just your 20s, you have your 30s and the
Well,
rest of
see,
your
if
life.
you never lost contact with your roots in the first place, you should never have to find them, right?
Yep.
So I think that's part of the problem too, is like
And
they don't want anybody actually getting into touch with their culture. They want us all to be this homogenous mix, and
and
that's just not how humans work.
yeah, teens, like I said, the teen exploitation element of it is still alive today. You have shows like Euphoria, right, where it's just a bunch of kids, doing debaucherous things and highlighting and glorifying the darkest things that humans can do, and showing it as kids are doing it as if it's normal, and it's
Well, part of that too is a lot of
not.
kids think that growing up is just being old enough to smoke cigarettes and drink beer and drive a car or whatever, and they think that's being grown up. It's like, no,
Yep.
dude, that's what adults might do to escape
Because
reality,
that
but that's not what being an adult is.
because
Being
those
an
are
adult
all,
means you work the rest of your life till you die.
yeah, those are all pseudo initiations because we don't have a system set up. So uh the drinking age, the getting a license age, and all that, like all that is pseudo initiations. That's that because people are looking for, even if they don't know it consciously, they're subconsciously looking for a mentor. They're looking for initiation rites because they want to step into adulthood. And now we have the idea of adulting, and oh, it's hard.
Well, and
It's
another thing to consider too is, imagine if those laws didn't exist. Let's just say that there was no age restriction on cigarettes and alcohol, as crazy as that sounds. But over a long enough period of time, because this is how it is in Europe, in a lot of places, it's just so much a part of the culture that nobody pays attention to it the way we do. But we have this Garden of Eden kind of dictatorial attitude toward it. Thou shalt not have cigarettes till you're this age and alcohol till this age. And it's like, well, now that you've told us we can't, now we want it, right? It's just like, it's that whole human psychology element.
yeah, yeah, it's exactly that. So now we have the growing distrust of between the generations. Generations are pointing their fingers at each other. um the knowledge, the wisdom isn't being shared. The culture isn't being passed down. People aren't being coming into their adulthood in their maturity, and the archetypes are breaking. It's all kind of failing. So we're reaping what we sowed in a way. um And so archetypes and culture of ancient civilizations and native tribes, and how our history of our country and the first world has grown proves that teenagers do not exist. Um, so yeah, that is pretty much my segment. So I'll end it there. This is just really a teaser. I've been talking about archetypes a lot recently, and I have a couple of other videos coming out. I have one I'm going to be doing over the film The Emerald Forest, um, which will be really interesting. It's a really fascinating film. I'm excited to go over that one. Um, and a few others. We have more King of Branch topics. Um, we have a interview coming up in about a month with a good friend of ours, which I won't announce quite yet, but we have that coming up as well. Um, and I'm going to get more into archetypes. And this is all spiraling up to our Father's Day episode, where we're going to talk about the masculine archetype and praise fathers. And it's going to be amazing. I have archetypes coming up, all kinds of stuff. Like I said, more the King and Branch show. So more, of course, more Dark MAGA updates with that. With that. Anything else you want to end on, Branch?
Excuse me. No, just that. Yeah. Okay, Boomer. You're right, Tim.
Oh yeah,
except
Tim's been saying stuff. Sorry, Tim, I haven't been caught up with your message.
Yeah, I appreciate his input. Yeah, so I'll probably be doing regular Dark MAGA segments. Maybe not every time, of course. I hope not every time, but periodically we'll be doing that. So typically what I like to cover with Solomon Report is like news through the lens of Bible prophecy, those sorts of things. So a lot of times I'll be discussing maybe what seems significant on the world stage, those sorts of things. But as we get closer to spring, I will be keeping my fingers on the pulse of the red heifer sacrifice ritual. There's only 3 of 5 heifers remaining eligible to have aged out. And what makes that ritual so significant is that they have to be a certain age. So if they don't do it soon, then the heifers age out, and they've already spent, I think, $500,000 on the 5 heifers they got. So they'll have to keep buying them if they don't do it soon. And that typically takes place in the spring. So as far as what's up and what might be coming down, I'm probably be doing some stories about that as we get closer to spring.
Yeah. And to kind of tie a bow on this, forgot to mention why. So why would they want to keep people at a limbotic infantile state? Well, easier to put up a panopticon if if everyone is doesn't have the energy to fight back, doesn't have the knowledge to fight back even. I think that's why it's so interesting to see the rise of like religion with Gen Z, and even with Gen Z men, you have the resurface popularity of Stoicism. So I think things like that, find it is interesting because we're looking for something.
Like the panopticon should only exist in your mind. God's always watching you, but don't build God on earth or it's going to be hell, right?
Yeah. So the easy solution to stop the panopticon from being built is to tap into your innate archetypes, become a mature masculine or a mature feminine, because we need the powerful ladies as well, and be human. stand up for humanity and stand up as children of God, stand in your holiness and all of that.
I will give Elon this to his credit. He did say that I can't remember who he was talking to, but there was some guy he was talking to something, and it kind of makes me feel good that he had this reaction, because maybe there is some hope. But this guy wanted to basically create an AI god, and I think it might have been Larry Ellis, the Oracle guy. And he basically wanted to create an AI god and, hurry up and do it yesterday. And Elon was like, maybe we should put the brakes on this and, just not be so quick to do it. There might be some ramifications. And basically they had a back and forth to the point that the other guy accused Elon of being a speciesist. So now we're getting terms like that thrown around. Like, imagine being called a speciesist, Chris, because you don't advocate for robot rights or whatever, like that's the kind of stuff we're going to be seeing cropping up here in the next few years, I think. So as the transhumanism thing starts, anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for watching and tuning in. So we'll see you guys next time. The immediate next video will most likely be a review, because I have two movies that I have an idea of what I want to review next on Kingdom Reviews. One of them is Emerald Forest. The other one will be unnamed until I review it. I don't know which one I'll do first, but one of them will be coming up hopefully in the next day or so. So thanks for the Brant for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Shabbat shalom.